In the heart of a busy pharmacy, Ella, a dedicated intern, made a simple yet life-changing decision. A small act of kindness, paying for a new mother's medicine, led to an unexpected and harsh consequence. Her boss, John, fired her on the spot. Devastated, Ella left in tears, feeling like her world had collapsed. However, just 1 hour later, the unexpected happened. The pharmacy owner stepped in, recognized her compassion, and offered her an opportunity that would transform her life forever. What started as a sad, heartbreaking moment ended with an incredible twist that you won't want to miss. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell to avoid missing any videos. Before we dive into this story, please let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Ella, a determined and compassionate pharmacy intern, found herself in a situation she never expected. Her small but incredibly kind gesture, paying for a new mother's much-needed medication, was meant to offer comfort and hope in a moment of vulnerability. Yet, instead of receiving praise or even a simple thank you, Ella's selfless act was met with harsh consequences. Her boss, John, a man known for his unforgiving nature, wasted no time in firing her on the spot. The emotional sting of that moment was intense, leaving her reeling from the injustice. Little did Ella know, the pharmacy owner was about to arrive, and his unexpected appearance would forever change the course of her life. At just 22 years old, Ella had already faced more challenges than many her age. Between juggling her university studies and the pressures of interning, life was anything but easy. However, securing an internship at Best Health Pharmacy felt like a breakthrough. This pharmacy was not just any local drugstore, it was a well-known institution in town, a place that many aspiring professionals dreamed of working for. Best Health had a stellar reputation for providing its interns with valuable experience and a high chance of permanent employment afterward. For Ella, this opportunity represented far more than just a stepping stone. It was her future, her chance to start paying off the mountain of student loans she had accumulated, and perhaps even help support her struggling family. From day one, Ella had thrown herself into the internship with passion and dedication. She worked long hours, often staying late to organize shelves, assist customers, and ensure the pharmacy ran smoothly. Her eyes were always on the goal: impress John, her boss, and secure a full-time position. But John, a man in his mid-30s with a reputation for being harsh and unyielding, was not an easy person to impress. His strict demeanor and no-nonsense attitude created an environment where even the smallest mistakes felt catastrophic. One particularly stressful morning, Ella arrived at the pharmacy 5 minutes past her scheduled time. As she hurried through the door, John's eyes locked on her immediately. His face twisted into a scowl, and his voice echoed through the quiet store. "Ella, you're late." Again. What did I say about lateness? His words were sharp, like daggers meant to wound. Ella, already frazzled from her commute, tried to explain. "I'm so sorry, John. There was traffic and I tried calling to let you know. But your number wasn't reachable," she stammered, hoping her explanation would soften his mood. But John wasn't interested in her excuses. "Traffic? That's no excuse. I live miles further than you do, and yet I managed to get here on time every single day," he barked, his voice growing louder with every word. His tone was laced with frustration, and his body language was tense, as if her lateness was a personal affront to his authority. Ella swallowed hard, fighting back the tears that were threatening to spill over. She needed this job more than ever, and the thought of losing it over something as trivial as being a few minutes late filled her with dread. "I promise it won't happen again," she whispered, her voice small and full of regret. If you're still tuned into this video and find the story inspiring, drop a 1 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. John wasn't done with her yet. He leaned in, his voice cold and cutting. "I shouldn't have to remind you that there are hundreds of people out there who would kill for your position. If you're not serious about this, just let me know. It won't be hard to find someone who is." And with that, he stormed away, leaving Ella standing there, feeling utterly defeated. The rest of the day dragged on in a haze of emotional exhaustion. Ella couldn't shake the weight of John's words. Her home life was already in turmoil, her parents were struggling to make ends meet, and the pressure of her student debt loomed over her like a dark cloud. John's scolding only added to the overwhelming stress she was already carrying. As she worked, her best friend and fellow intern, Mary, noticed Ella's distress. Mary had known John's temper for longer than Ella and had become somewhat immune to his outbursts. She gently nudged Ella and offered a comforting smile. "Don't let him get to you. He's always like that. You can't let John's nastiness ruin your entire day," Mary whispered, trying to lift Ella's spirits. Mary had seen John's strictness firsthand and knew how it could weigh on people. She, like the rest of the interns and staff, had learned to avoid his wrath by staying under the radar, never drawing too much attention to themselves. John was notorious for his strict policies and overbearing management style. When he entered a room, conversations would immediately halt, and everyone would snap to attention, desperate to avoid a lecture or worse, being fired on the spot. The oppressive atmosphere in the pharmacy extended to everyone, not just the interns. Even the long-time employees tiptoed around John, constantly trying to stay in his good graces. But it wasn't just his professional demeanor that made him the subject of endless gossip. Interns often speculated about his personal life, wondering how someone could be so cold and severe. One day, after a particularly harsh outburst, 2 interns whispered among themselves, their voices barely audible. "Do you think he's like this at home? His wife and kids must hate living with him," one intern murmured, casting a glance over her shoulder to make sure John wasn't lurking nearby. The other intern snickered softly, shaking her head. "I doubt he's even married. Who could live with someone that miserable? I bet he spends his nights alone." Scowling at the TV, 2 interns laughed quietly, their brief moment of rebellion a tiny act of defiance in the face of John's constant tyranny. But their laughter was cut short when John appeared out of nowhere, his face flushed with anger. "Is that what you think of me?" he hissed, his voice low but filled with fury. The 2 interns froze, their eyes wide with terror. "Pack your things. You're dismissed," John said coldly, his words carrying the finality of a judge's verdict. The interns, pale and shaking, hurried to gather their belongings, their brief rebellion costing them their jobs. For Ella, witnessing incidents like these only added to her anxiety. Every day felt like walking on a tightrope, one wrong step, and she could be next. But despite John's harshness, she continued to do her best, hoping that her dedication would eventually win him over. Then, one fateful afternoon, everything changed. A young mother came into the pharmacy, her face pale with worry, as she cradled her newborn in her arms. She handed Ella a prescription, explaining in a trembling voice that she couldn't afford the medication but desperately needed it for her baby. Ella's heart ached for the woman. She knew what it felt like to be in need, to feel helpless and scared. Without a second thought, she quietly paid for the medicine out of her pocket. It wasn't much, but to that new mother, it meant the world. But as soon as John found out, his fury knew no bounds. "How dare you? This is a business, not a charity. You have no right to make decisions like that," he shouted, his face red with rage. "You're fired, effective immediately." Ella stood there, stunned and heartbroken. She had only wanted to help, and now she was losing everything. Fighting back tears, she quietly gathered her things and left the pharmacy, her future now uncertain. But just 60 minutes later, the pharmacy owner arrived. He had heard about Ella's act of kindness, and instead of condemning her, he praised her for her compassion. At that moment, Ella's life took a dramatic turn. The owner offered her a full-time position, recognizing that someone with her heart and dedication was exactly what Best Health Pharmacy needed. Ella's journey had been filled with hardship and heartache, but in the end, her kindness had not gone unnoticed. When the 2 interns heard they were dismissed, panic surged through them. Their eyes widened with shock, and they immediately began to plead with John. "Please, John, we're so sorry. We didn't mean it. It won't happen again," one of them cried, her voice trembling. The other quickly chimed in, her desperation palpable. "We didn't know you were there. We didn't mean any harm. Please give us another chance." But John stood there, unmoved by their pleas, his face stern and his arms crossed. "I've already made my decision," he said coldly, cutting off their apologies. No matter how much they begged, no matter how much they tried to explain themselves, John refused to listen. His eyes never softened, and his heart remained hardened. With no choice left, the interns were forced to pack their belongings and leave, tears streaming down their faces as they walked out, devastated at the prospect of finding another place to complete their internship. By the end of that emotionally exhausting day, Ella felt the weight of the situation settle heavily on her. She had been desperate to secure a full-time position at the pharmacy after her internship, but now, doubt crept into her mind, overshadowing her determination. The thought of continuing to work under John filled her with anxiety. His toxic behavior was becoming unbearable, and every day spent in his presence felt like a personal battle. As the days dragged on, John's toxicity only seemed to intensify. His sharp remarks, cold demeanor, and unpredictable outbursts made Ella's stomach churn every time she walked into the pharmacy. The once exciting opportunity now felt like a suffocating trap. The constant stress left her on edge, anxious whenever John was around, and she began to dread even the idea of going to work. One evening, unable to bear it any longer, Ella poured her heart out to her mother over dinner. "Mom, I don't want to work there once my internship ends. I don't think I can handle John anymore," she confessed, her voice heavy with frustration and fear. Her mother, always practical, sighed softly. "But darling, you know how hard it is to find a job these days. Working there is your best shot. And we do need the money. The sooner you start paying off that student loan, the better." Ella looked down at her plate, her heart heavy. "I know, Mom, but I don't think I can do this. My heart skips every time I see John. Just his presence makes it hard to focus. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells all day long." Her mother's expression softened with understanding, though she remained firm. "I understand, honey. I do. I've had my fair share of tough bosses, but for now, maybe you just have to ignore him as best you can. Focus on doing your job well. You don't have to be in his good graces, just get through it." Ella let out a bitter laugh. "Believe me, Mom, John doesn't have a good graces book. He's the devil himself." Her mother chuckled softly at her daughter's attempt to lighten the mood. "Just hang in there, darling. You're strong. You'll get through this." Taking her mother's advice to heart, Ella did her best to push through the following weeks. She made sure to arrive at the pharmacy early every day, leaving her house by 7 a.m. to avoid any possible delays. Her morning routine became rigid: up by 6 a.m. breakfast, then out the door to make it to work before John could find any reason to criticize her. For weeks, Ella kept her distance from John, only speaking to him when necessary. She even agreed with her close friend Mary to avoid talking about John or the pharmacy during work hours. They had seen firsthand how easily John could fire someone over a careless remark, and they weren't about to risk their jobs. But despite their caution, things took a sad turn when Mary had to leave. The pharmacy had decided to hire only one intern after the program, and that person was Ella. Though she was relieved to have been hired, she felt a pang of sadness knowing Mary wouldn't be by her side anymore. If you're still tuned into this video and find the story inspiring, drop a 2 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. Now officially employed, Ella was torn between relief and dread. On one hand, she was thrilled that she could finally start supporting her parents and begin paying off her student loans. But on the other hand, the environment at the pharmacy felt more suffocating than ever. John's treatment of the staff was even worse than she had realized during her internship. He yelled at them for the slightest mistakes and often used mean, cutting words, even calling them names if they didn't do exactly what he wanted. Despite the toxic atmosphere, Ella clung to the few things that kept her going: her mother's encouraging words, the customers she had grown fond of, and the small friendships she had made in the neighborhood. Over the months, Ella had become familiar with some of the locals, and their warmth helped counterbalance the coldness she felt at work. One of Ella's favorite new friends was Arya, a kind and lively woman who was pregnant when they first met. Arya frequented the pharmacy to pick up medications for her pregnancy, and over time, the two women formed a bond. Ella always looked forward to Arya's visits. Her smile and easy conversation were a breath of fresh air in the otherwise tense environment. Months passed, and Arya eventually gave birth to a beautiful baby. One evening, just as the pharmacy was winding down for the day, Arya walked in, cradling her newborn in her arms. "Hi," Arya said with a warm smile. "But could I please get a pack of supplements and some diapers?" "Of course, Arya. How are you and the little one doing?" Ella asked, her voice brightening as she grabbed the items from the shelves. "We're both doing great, thank you," Arya replied, her eyes glowing with the pride and joy of new motherhood. Ella smiled as she handed over the items. "That'll be $22.50, she said, her heart swelling with happiness for her friend. It was moments like these, small yet meaningful, that helped Ella push through the toxicity of her work life. But little did she know, this simple exchange with Arya would soon lead to a life-changing moment, one that would redefine everything she thought she knew about kindness, courage, and standing up for what was right. "Oh my, I'm $10 short. Could you please hold on to this? I'll be right back." "I left my wallet at home," Arya said, her face flushed with embarrassment as she cradled her newborn. Without hesitation, Ella smiled warmly. "Oh no, Arya, you don't have to go all the way back home for just $10. Don't worry, I'll cover it for you." Arya's eyes widened in surprise. "Oh no, Ella, you don't have to do that." "Come on, Arya," Ella insisted, her voice full of kindness. "It's just $10. I wouldn't want you making another trip for such a small amount. You've got enough to deal with." Arya's eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you so much, Ella. You're such an angel." Without a second thought, Ella reached into her purse, pulled out $10, and added it to Arya's payment. She handed Arya the bag of medication and diapers with a reassuring smile, feeling good about helping her friend. But what Ella didn't realize was that John, the ever-watchful and rigid boss, had been lurking nearby. His eyes narrowed as he watched the scene unfold, fury building inside him. As soon as Arya stepped out of the pharmacy, John's voice sliced through the air like a whip. "Ella, you're fired." The words hit Ella like a punch to the gut. She froze in shock, turning to face John, her mind racing to understand. "I don't understand. What did I do?" John's face was contorted with anger. "Who gave you the right to pay for customers? Do you think you're Father Christmas now?" he spat, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "But she's my friend. She needed help," Ella explained, her voice trembling as she tried to keep calm. John cut her off without mercy. "I don't care if she's your friend or your mother, you're fired." Ella's heart sank, and as John yelled at her again, the emotional weight became too much to bear. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she ran into the back room, her breath coming in ragged sobs. "Make sure you pack your things while you're in there," John shouted after her, his voice echoing through the quiet pharmacy, adding salt to her wound. In the back room, Ella quickly changed out of her work clothes, her hands trembling as she stuffed her few belongings into a small bag. Her mind was spinning how had something so small spiraled into this. Her heart ached with a mixture of sadness and disbelief. When she emerged, eyes red from crying, she mustered the courage to try one last time. "Please, John. Let me explain," she begged, her voice cracking. But John turned away, ignoring her completely, his face set in stone. Seeing that her pleas fell on deaf ears, Ella wiped away her tears, knowing there was nothing more she could do. With a heavy heart, she walked out of the pharmacy, tears streaming down her cheeks as she hailed a taxi to take her home. At home, Ella's mother could immediately sense the devastation on her daughter's face. Pulling Ella into a gentle embrace, she whispered soothingly, "Don't worry, Ella. I'm sure God will provide you with another job." "But Mom," Ella choked out, her voice breaking with emotion, "I didn't do anything wrong. There's no rule at the pharmacy that says I can't help someone in need. How can kindness be punished?" Her mother stroked her hair softly, trying to comfort her. "It's all right, baby. Sometimes people don't understand the value of kindness. Stop crying, sweetheart. You did what was right." Despite her mother's comforting words, Ella's heart remained heavy. The sting of being unfairly fired gnawed at her, leaving her feeling lost and broken. What Ella didn't realize, though, was that this painful moment was not the end of her story, it was just the beginning. What seemed like a devastating blow was, in fact, a blessing in disguise. Her life was about to change in ways she could never have imagined. If you're still tuned into this video and find the story inspiring, drop a 3 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. 60 minutes after Ella's world seemed to collapse, the unexpected happened. The owner of the pharmacy arrived, his expression serious as he sought out John. It turned out that the pharmacy owner had been reviewing security footage from earlier in the day and had seen everything: Ella's quiet act of kindness toward the nursing mother, and just as clearly John's harsh reaction that ended with Ella being fired. The owner, who had already received numerous complaints about John's management style, knew it was time for a change. Without delay, he called Ella back to the pharmacy. When she arrived, still shaken and unsure of what to expect, the owner personally apologized to her. His words were sincere, and Ella could hardly believe what was happening. But the surprises didn't end there. The pharmacy owner, recognizing Ella's integrity and potential, made a bold decision. He fired John on the spot. After too many reports of his toxic behavior, the owner knew John's reign of terror needed to come to an end. What happened next left Ella speechless. The owner appointed her as the new manager of the pharmacy. Just 1 hour earlier, she had thought her entire future was falling apart, and now she was stepping into a role beyond her wildest dreams. The best part, along with the new position came a generous salary, far beyond what she had hoped for as an intern. With her new income, Ella could easily pay off her student loans, support her family, and still save money at the end of each month. Her life transformed in ways she never imagined, and the sense of relief and accomplishment filled her with a new sense of purpose. Determined to create the kind of work environment she had once wished for, Ella ensured that the pharmacy became a welcoming and supportive space for both the staff and future interns. She implemented a culture of respect, kindness, and mutual support values that had been sorely lacking under John's leadership. Through a simple act of compassion, Ella's life took a turn for the better in less than a day. Meanwhile, John's life changed dramatically as well, though not for the better. After being fired, he struggled to find new opportunities and eventually had to settle for a menial job, where he was forced to confront the consequences of his actions and learn some hard lessons along the way. Ella's story is a powerful reminder that true success isn't always defined by titles, wealth, or validation from others. It often lies in the quiet acts of kindness and compassion that ripple out, affecting not only those we help but also ourselves. By choosing empathy over fear, Ella not only brightened Arya's day but also unknowingly set herself on a path to a more fulfilling and abundant future. Her journey teaches us that the most profound rewards come from stepping outside of our comfort zones and embracing the deep connections we share with others. As we reach the end of this incredible story, it's time to reflect. What have you learned from Ella's journey of kindness, resilience, and unexpected transformation? So think about one thing that stands out to you, one lesson you'll take with you and put into practice in your own life. Is it the importance of compassion, the power of standing up for what's right, or the way life can change in an instant? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Comment below with what you've learned and how you plan to apply it in your own life. Your insights could inspire others on their journey. If you enjoyed this video, please leave your comment below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.